Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're the first panel over here for this morning, and we hope you're all still fresh. First of all, also from our side, we want to thank you all for joining, and of course, also thanks to the various sponsors that made this event possible. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion on change of shipping industry and the problems that we're going to face on the energy and also, of course, on the shipping side. Today, the panel talks we will present and we'll learn more about the future of the shipping industry and transition. And I would like to introduce our panel, Mr. Johann Klinger, Managing Partner from Bus Group. Then we have Mr. Brian Bartlett, SVP Finance Business Development from Energos, if I'm correct, Energy or Infrastructure. Then Mr. Daniel Muthmann, he's VP Business Development from Höegh LNG Holding Limited. And Mr. Robert Burke, Partner and CEO of Ridgebury Tankers. I would say, first of all, my name is, as we've seen, Jacobus Varossieau. I'm a Business Development Manager at RINA since almost now 3 years, coming fully from the shipping industry. And I'm happy to present this panel to you. I would like to say, Mr. Klinger, please have a short introduction on yourself so our audience know more about you and your company, maybe.
Yeah, I think you basically said everything. No, it's fine. Bus is not a typical shipping company. It's a more Hamburg-based company operating in port, logistics, and shipping. And shipping, we are partners in Leonhard and Bloomberg since 6 years, so that brings us deep into this world, doing containers and recently tankers. Apart from that, Bus used to be a traditional stevedoring company. Today we are quite focused on renewable energy, on the energy transition. Since 12 years we operate port in northern Holland, in Eemshaven, one of the major ports for the offshore wind industry in the North Sea. And our recent project, which probably also brings me to this panel, is that we develop a land-based LNG terminal in close to Hamburg in Stade. We started the project before the Ukraine war, which was a bit challenging back then, and got some backwind since, as you can imagine. And we now received, just a week ago, we received our permit to construct the LNG terminal. However, this is only be finished in 27. Also, we get a FSRU to Stade. FSRU is a topic, I think, on the panel today. And this will arrive end of this year. So everything on time. So quite a spread over the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johann Klinger. Brian Bartlett, please.
Short
introduction.
Hello, everyone. Brian Bartlett, SVP from Energos Infrastructure. Energos is a new player, I guess, in the market, you'd say. We were born last August in 2022 with the purchase of the former Golar LNG fleet. Our company is backed by a private equity firm out of New York, Apollo Global Management, and we have a minority investment from an American energy company, New Fortress Energy. So we own 11 assets, 7 FSRUs, 2 FSUs, and 2 carriers, primarily in Central and South America, although we have 1 asset in Southeast Asia, in Jakarta. And we actually have an asset not far from here, an FSRU in Eemshaven, which is, regasifying significant volumes of gas. Yes. So, as I mentioned, we're relatively new, although in the last year we've built a very strong team with seasoned and experienced executives, and we're active in the market, looking at all tenders on the market now and looking at growth across every opportunity. So excited to be here.
Thank you very much, Brian. I would like to now give the word to Mr. Daniel Muthmann from Höegh LNG Holdings, please.
Yes, good morning, everyone. It seems we're very good represented on the LNG side here. So I'm Business Development Manager or Vice President Business Development for Höegh LNG. Höegh LNG, you might know, has been around for quite some time. We just had the 50th anniversary of taking our first LNG carrier. But over the time, about 10 years ago, the company shifted more and more towards the terminal side of things. So today our portfolio consists of 10 FSRUs globally. And with all the recent events that we have seen over the past 2 years, it happened to be that 5 of those vessels are actually now in Europe, 3 of those are in Germany. So naturally, energy security and how to take these and develop this forward is a topic for us, but equally so, as was mentioned in the start, it is already on the horizon. What can you do with these assets going forward? For those of you interested, I can point you to a Handelsblatt article that came out this morning, where we are basically offering to the market a possibility to actually convert, repurpose an FSRU to also use it for ammonia imports. I guess those kinds of things go hand in hand with what was said earlier. In the world market, generally, I think there is a lot of, we need to go green. There's like thousands of projects, but there's very few FIDs. And I guess the challenge is, which is basically very often just the commerciality and the possibility to basically make it viable and bankable, is what we're all working with. And there it needs partnering along the value chain. And this is very big projects and topics that we're dealing with right now. By the way, personally, I'm not from the shipping industry. I have 25 years of background in energy and LNG and gas. And I just joined Höegh in May, which also maybe shows you that we're developing from coming from the maritime side more into considering, okay, how do you link it with the infrastructure on shore, and what does actually the market need beyond the port?
Exactly, yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. Mr. Robert Burke from Ridgebury Tankers, please.
Thank you. My name is Bob Burke, and I'm CEO of Ridgebury Tankers. This time last year, we owned 28 ships, and I'm pleased to announce that we've achieved net zero, actually absolute zero. We've sold all our assets one at a time. We were still working on scope 3, but it's a long walk to my office, and we're going to have to work with that. We are a private equity sponsored group. We have not just one sponsor, but several. We do deals for various private equity groups who have been invested with us over the years. I bought and sold probably close to 100 ships over the past 20 years, so we've been in and out of the market, depending upon where we are in the cycle, the types of investors we have, and the types of deals that they want. So, we'll be back in probably in short order with some other vessels. But I first of all, we've taken up a third of the time with just introducing ourselves, so I'll cut it off there and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. As said, in this panel discussion, we will dig a little bit deeper into energy security. We are facing the issue of the impact of the Ukrainian war, the Russian embargo that also came up towards us. And so this also means the LNG, the need of LNG, the transport, the reception facilities. And the question is, with what we have seen now with the Ukrainian war and also now what was going on in Israel, this will have a huge impact. And this might also change our idea of going into renewable energies. This is what I also would like to have an idea on, because we still have to say that LNG is a fossil fuel. Mr. Klingert, I would like to actually start a little bit with you. You have been mentioning that the Bus Group has several divisions in all respects. So of course we have seen what happened last winter here in Germany or in North Europe. Our fear of not having sufficient energy anymore available or fuels available to heat up our houses. That was almost going on at that time. How do you see the energy securing in the future, and also for all your business?
It's an interesting market. I like, which is challenging but very interesting. So Germany changed completely. The energy world in Germany changed completely over the last 1.5 years since the Ukraine war. They had to switch basically from supply from east to west, now from west to east. So first, as everybody knows, they had been very reluctant so far to be polite regarding LNG. Now they love LNG. They have to love LNG. They need to change the whole grid system to make the imports of LNG now reach German industry and also Czech and Austrian industry. Going forward, I think for the next years, they definitely rely on LNG. But maybe one sideline. What happened last year had an effect which nobody probably wanted and probably also not expected. Coal was, I think that we had a record amount of coal fired in Germany because Germany moved out of nuclear, different from everybody else in the world. And gas was so expensive that even despite the CO2 taxes, I may say so, coal was still competitive. So now we have to wind that back, of course. So going forward, I think I see a good future for the next 10, 15 years for LNG. The LNG acceleration law, whether it was really an acceleration law is another discussion. The acceleration law allows fossil fuels, fossil LNG until 43. It means everybody who's looking into that is also needs to look beyond that and think about what's coming next. At the moment, we are, and everybody else is, very much looking into ammonia import. So all the import terminals planned now are needed to be ammonia ready, which is not that difficult, actually. However, the rest of the logistics chain, hydrogen logistics chain, ammonia logistics chain is still very much unclear. What we hear is that from our customers, from our current LNG customers, all of them want us to develop into also being ready to import ammonia. They say there's a lot of supply in the world, but not all of them taken FID yet, so it's a lot of supply projects in the world, and also for reasonable prices. However, the import, the demand side is not yet clear. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and that makes it for us very interesting to be in this world.
That's fully true. We're, as I mentioned in the beginning, we're in a completely transition period. Yeah, it is. You can maybe also say if I compare it to shipping, it's a bit like going away from the sailing time into the steam engine vessels. This is also, and that is also the transition time that we have. Brian, you have been in the cruise industry. We've been discussing that a little bit yesterday. You also informed me about the tanker security program in the US. You have been involved, and now you're in the point of the FRSUs.
FSRU.
Yeah, exactly.
I needed a year.
Okay, thank you. The question is, will LNG be the fuel still for the future? Will that be a fuel that will secure our energy needs? I know you don't have the glass ball. That's a fact.
Well, pragmatically, it seems like it will be for the foreseeable future. I mean, I think, there's concern over the emissions, and that's why there's discussion around these future fuels. But from a pragmatic standpoint, LNG is the most efficient and clean fuel that we have right now that can be deployed at scale. And so we certainly think that it'll be around for quite a while. I think the EU energy minister was on record in the Financial Times. She was quoted as saying that the EU will need American gas for decades. And so I think that clearly for the next few decades, there will be a place for LNG.
Yeah, thank you. Daniel, Höegh is a big player in the LNG market. Yeah, it's your part as well. What is your view on LNG and the import on LNG for the future? We're talking about shipping part, though you're not coming from the shipping, but it's also and shipping and also the industry ashore.
I think to answer this question more precisely, I think you have to look at which geography you're actually looking at. I think generally what we're struggling with renewable energy is that it has a very low energy density and you cannot store it, at least not with current technology. That means in all of our systems and value chains, there is a need for molecules, because molecules have the capability of having high energy content relatively, and you can store them. And currently LNG is number one, available, and number two, with a very uncertain future, because nobody knows what's happening geopolitically over in the long run, it is quite flexible. So I mean that's the possibility. You cannot and you would not at the moment invest, I think, heavily in a lot of onshore infrastructure with very uncertain demand, just as much as you need. So I think in essence, what Brian said, I think there is a place for LNG, at least I would say, depending on where you look, for 20, 30 or 30 years. But then if you look at the regions, we'll probably see some different developments depending on whether you're in Europe or whether you're in Asia and how people are trying to start changing that into something else. But ultimately, I think it's a very exciting time because nobody knows what the world will look like in 10 or 15 years. And I think if you had asked somebody in Germany 10 years ago what the role of LNG in Germany will be 10 years from now, nobody would have said what we see today. And the same is true before shale gas was discovered in the US. So I think we're at this point where there's a lot of pressures on these developments and a lot of things can happen. But just want to reiterate, and there's a parallel where I think shipping and energy comes together. Anything that you want to enable in terms of new value chain requires, as it was earlier with big gas and oil fields, that people cooperate along the value chain from basically source to sink to get something going. And that's, I think, what we're all working towards and where we need to get projects off the ground, otherwise we won't get anywhere.
So that, thanks, Daniel. So that means a little bit also looking that LNG will remain our main fuel for the mid-long term. Yeah?
That was a question, what's long term?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. We can't look beyond a particular date. So yeah, that is definitely a fact. Robert, you've been involved in tankers, what I understood, in crude oil tankers and well, product tankers.
My kids hate me.
In that way, yeah. And of course, we had a lot of Russian oil coming into Europe and being Russian oil transported. Has that had any impact on your business? Yeah? Because we're talking about the energy securing part, and of course, the Russian oil had a huge impact on Europe in that respect. Yeah. And what have you seen and faced upon that?
Yeah, I'll answer your question in one sec, but I just wanted to make a comment about some of the comments I already heard today. Everyone talks about what we want in this room or the governments, and we want green energy. And there's a difference. My native language is English, and I know that, so it's easy for me to parse between need and want. And what I say is, we want green energy, but do we need it right now? I mean, today, like this afternoon. And I tell my kids, there's a difference between need and want, because they want everything, they say. I said, no. Your mother wants a mink coat, the mink, the little furry guy. I said, but the mink, he needs it. And that's the difference. Your mother doesn't need it, she wants it. And when you look at Germany the past few years, all of Europe, everybody wanted green energy. But when push came to shove, you just wanted energy. So when the gas got shut off, there was suddenly a lot of solutions that weren't optimal for the green movement, but you got what you needed, and it happened fast. And when I look at where I live, there's a protest going on in my town over a 7-mile transmission line that's going to cut down some trees that will make us more energy efficient. Nobody wants the trees dead, but they all want green energy. So the question is, where is it going to come from? And as Daniel said, this density is an issue, and we've never gone from a dense source of energy to a less dense source of energy. So I think it's really energy addition, not energy transition. If you look at the energy stack, we haven't reached peak wood yet. Peak wood is an energy we haven't reached. It's a fact. And coal. If you ask someone on the street, when did we hit peak coal? 50 years ago. No, we're still going up. And because I think the human need for energy is insatiable. There are like 35 million airplanes in the sky every year. That's a lot of airplanes. It's a lot of fuel. And as energy gets cheaper, we get more and more and more. So I didn't answer your question, I know. But so the challenge is how do we get there? And remember the movie The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman? And there's a cocktail party, and Dustin Hoffman is speaking to some guy who's probably my age, and he says to him, "I have one word for you about the future: plastics." And I think about the energy desire, and it seems to be nuclear on a larger scale. But on the smaller scale, when you talk about gas, I think all the things that were brought up, the storing, the transportation, the infrastructure. The infrastructure, nobody wants to change anything anywhere. We have this NIMBY, not in my backyard, anywhere else, but not in my backyard. There's a new one in the States called Don't Banana, which is don't build anything near anything, never, anytime. But we all want green energy. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but the Russian situation, it's the market's changed, and the oil caps aren't working. We find other places to get oil, so does everybody else. It flows from where it needs to be, and the price adjusts. So it was a very sharp adjustment, but the market fixed it, and it's continuing to fix it over time.
Exactly. Well, so it appears in the US the same as also in Germany, not in my back garden.
Right. Now you have Don't Banana.
This is
anywhere, nothing.
Anywhere. So, no. But that's also the point of saying, well, we have to move away from the fossil fuels. But
yeah, you have to be practical.
We need to give the transition time. That's a fact. And I think with what happened, unfortunately, with the war in the Ukraine, it gave us the opportunity to move quicker away and look into renewable energies. Ms. Klingel, what is your view on that? Is it going to be a fact that we are going to move quicker into a renewable energy? Due to these kind of aspects that now happened?
Need and want. That's a good one.
New topic.
I was thinking about that, actually. I'm not undecided. In Germany, I have the impression, to some extent, yes, because because Germans don't like LNG because all US fracking LNG, which is bullshit, by the way, but that's to some extent public opinion here. And because of that, they say, okay, we need it, and for time we don't want it, but we want renewable, which is maybe even clearer because we have to need now LNG for a while. So. And they all, our customers at least, for our LNG terminal, which are big German utilities, they all look beyond that, and they all do heavy investments in what's going on in ammonia, as I said earlier. They also do a lot in the wind energy sector. So basically, yes, I would say because it makes it's uncomfortable, the situation now. With the Russian gas was very comfortable, and now we had this wake up. We need to have this US fracking gas now for a while. I'm glad they have it, and now we would like to move even quicker into the green future. with wind and photovoltaic and import some. Germany will need to import, I think, 70% of its energy in form of probably ammonia or other ways. That is accelerating slightly. Whether it's happening in the end, whether all these projects take FID is another story. I think that given the high interest in the moment, given what's happening in energy markets, given what's happening on labor markets, it's not moving with the pace it should.
Yeah, thank you very much on this. Ryan, I would like to go a bit on the energy securing side as well. We see that LNG has been, if I look into Germany, it was one of our main fuels or here energy sources. We have been really hit last year. I mentioned it already. Last year summer, we were almost all sitting in the cold, freezing at home. What we're doing now again is like also here in Europe, and I know from the Netherlands because I'm originally Dutch, is that we are now again focusing on one country. Yeah? I don't want to mention country names, but we all know that from where we have issued contracts with particular countries which are able to provide LNG. What is your view on this, of focusing again on one country or only a couple of countries because of the geopolitical situation? And will that be, well, because we need to secure our energy. We need to secure that we're able to heat our houses and let our industry run.
I mean, I think certainly what the situation with Russia showed is that you don't want to be beholden to one source. I think one of the advantages that LNG offers as a fuel source is that if you have the import capabilities via a land-based terminal or via an FSRU, you can source from different regions. And the liquefaction output continues to grow and is projected to continue to grow. And so there's multiple sources for gas throughout the world. And, you know, aside from long-term offtake agreements that generally, you know, are stable, that gives you that flexibility as opposed to a pipeline situation, right? So what we see with a lot of our clients and customers is they don't always actually use the FSRU, but to provide a significant portion, but it's important as a backup, and that's across different dimensions. So to your question around, you know, how does LNG fit into the transition? I mean, one of the things that's interesting about LNG as a fuel is it can be turned on much more quickly as a backup power source, right? So, for instance, one of our FSRUs in Brazil really gets very little utilization, but it's there to back up hydroelectric power in the country, right? So you need that backup when you're relying on renewables that are not always reliable. And so LNG can fill a pretty important role in that.
Yeah, so coming a little bit to the point is LNG remains our secured fuel for the future.
Yep.
It is.
And what we see actually again with our customers is, to your point, Annual, I mean, it's interesting. The LNG infrastructure space is really kind of a blend between the maritime sector and the energy sector, right? And so with our customers, you know, they tend to be very long-term contracts for these assets, you know, 15 plus years. And a lot of the commercial terms are not what you would normally see in the maritime space, right? So we see some customers in tenders that we're participating in want to have purchase options. They want to have joint venture options. And those, from our standpoint, are sometimes difficult to wrap our head around. But from our customer standpoint, having guaranteed control of that asset is hugely important. Right?
Okay, thank you. And then, Daniel, we're seeing now, as Mr. Klinger just also told and made the announcement, or well, kind of announcement, that in Stade a shore plant will be built. What is your view? We had some little bit of a discussion yesterday evening at the conference meeting. What is your view on land-based and sea-based
FSRUs.
I will learn it by the end.
I think there are a number of answers to this. First one is perception. I think in Europe and in particular in Germany, Germany wasn't an LNG country until last year. Everything is new. Nobody is used to it. It's very different than, for example, Spain that has been doing LNG for decades. And that means when FSRU were deployed and everything was done very quickly, by the way, kudos to everybody involved there, because we know also from the pipeline infrastructure people, from the people sourcing LNG. I mean, I said it to you last time, what I really admire about the energy industry is in times of security crisis, everybody cooperates. And people ask about writing invoices afterwards. That's really remarkable. But what I wanted to say is the FSRUs came in a time of absolute emergency perception. And that is that in Germany, I think other than, for example, in South America or in Asia, it's a bit like, oh, well, it's the white knight that comes when there's a problem. And then maybe later it can go away again, which is in the acceleration law. If you look at it from an asset perspective, I would say, look at the asset, look at the capabilities, and look at the cost. And I think in general in the world, an FSRU and a land-based terminal have both its characteristics. Some different economics. Some can be built faster, some has more flexibility. So I would say from our perspective, as we have other contracts where the asset is 25 to 30 years on one site, it is one long-term option, just as a land-based terminal is. What I say for Germany, coming from the energy side, there is so much uncertainty, and I know the government is very concerned that nobody knows how gas demand will develop. How fast will we actually be able to, possibly phase down or out gas? And probably it will need longer, as we already sensed here, than we think, or some people want and think we need. But the issue is, if that's your perception, of course I would say that from that, but I would say the FSRU gives you the flexibility, you have it as long as you need it. Maybe you can use it for other things, but if you don't need it anymore, you can, of course, that's the inherent flexibility, you can move it. And I think that's one of the differences. But in general, I think we see a lot of gas demand, and we will see the need, in my view, of both the FSRUs and the land-based terminals for quite some time to come.
Okay, thank you. Robert, of course, you've been in the business of the oil tankers, and we have seen the oil streams going back and forward. They changed, of course, somewhat. We will definitely see also new kind of type tankers coming into the market, or the existing tanker fleet for particular fuels are too small. So we need to go into a different way. Do you see that we are able to cope with our needs when it comes to energy securing?
As far as tanker
With the tankers, with the tankers.
I have this may shock you, slightly different view of the tanker fleet than some people. Gas is a great fuel, and the challenge on the tanker side is there are hundreds of ports, and we don't know where we're going to go. So it's hard, and they all are not going to have bunkering facilities if we all go gas in the short run. So the decision to go gas is huge. On the container side and a lot of other sectors, car carriers, it's point to point, so it's fairly easy. We can build our ships, ammonia ready, but I heard someone say one time that their driveway is Ferrari ready. It doesn't really mean much. So what are we going to do? And who's going to make a huge investment in a fuel source that we don't know what it's going to be and have an asset for 25 years? So the default mechanism is to delay the decision. Tankers supposedly last for 20 years, and there's a huge bubble of ships coming 15, 16, 17 years old in the short run. So we took a look at older tankers and what the energy is to build a new Suezmax tanker, which carries 1 million barrels, for those of you who are not in the tanker business. And it takes about 95,000 tons of CO2 output emissions to build one Suezmax tanker, and they burn like 25,000 tons a year. So unless you have a step change in fuel efficiency, whether it's gas or some other form, it makes sense to have those assets last as long as possible, because the incremental increase for a new tanker versus a 15-year-old tanker, you can say is 10%, 20%. It's not a step change. So it's sort of insane to melt all down 20-year-old ships and build new ones. It's sort of the lazy way to say I'm ESG friendly. You're not ESG friendly. You're doing something that doesn't make sense. Other assets such as airplanes last 30 years. I mean, who flew here? Who's been on a plane the past few weeks? Okay, and who asked them how old the plane was before they put their family on there and strapped them to a seat and blew them across the ocean at 500 miles an hour? Not many people. So, my view about the energy is we should use the assets we have and take care of them. I mean, the problem is we manage them as owners towards a 20-year scrapping life. We don't manage them towards 25 or 30, which they can last. So I think the decision to build new propulsion on tankers is going to take some time until the more predictable voyages, such as container ships and car carriers and all the rest of the world fleet, finds out, what the fuel should be, and we'll probably follow in good course.
So it means, we really have to invest then in new kind of type tankers to secure our energy.
Yeah, but the whole forms haven't changed very much, and they probably won't. And like I said, the fuel source has to be predictable for a spot market where the energy needs are always changing and the sources are always changing. So we're going to have, and the traders move the oil all over the world. So we don't know where we're going to go. So we have to be able to load the ship, bunker, and understand that where the ship is going to discharge to be another bunkering port. And that doesn't work in a spot market in such a diversified world.
Daniel.
Can I just add?
Yeah, please feel free.
We're talking about energy security here. And I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned at all, which is almost like the white elephant in the room, is security of the assets. Because I know from personal experience and talking to the German government and other relevant parties with critical infrastructure, there's a lot of concern now with the sort of security level that we have overall everywhere in the world. How vulnerable are our assets? Because we all seen and still remember the picture of the bubbling Baltic Sea. Just to be very frank, if something like that happened to a Norwegian pipeline, we're screwed. There is no alternative in the world that will supply this amount. By the way, you said LNG is an important source, but the biggest source of energy in Germany now is Norway. Yeah, and they supply three pipelines, and of course there's a big concern. If anything should happen to these pipelines, we don't have any chance to react.
Chinese vessel was an anchor, was a loose anchor.
Yeah, regardless of what, but I'm just saying, also, we've been getting the questions for the FSRUs. What can you do to make them safe so that they cannot be easily targets from the seaside, and so on and so on. So it's very important going forward when you talk energy security that everything we do is not only safe from an operational point of view, but also secured to the best extent possible.
Yeah. No, you're fully right. Thank you very much for that comment. And I see on the clock we're almost through with the 40 minutes. So I would say thank you for that comment. It is we can definitely talk much longer about this energy securing and what kind of future fuel we will have, and moving towards renewable energy, which we all know we need to do that. And how it's going to happen, we don't know. It's still a little bit of an uncertain period. So I would like to thank you very much, all four of you, for joining up on this panel and providing us with your input. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.